Hello everyone, and welcome. I'm excited to kick off our presentation today. We'll be exploring Mega Goal 2.2, focusing on Unit 8, which is all about the sporting life. The title of our unit is Form, Meaning, and Function, and that's what we'll be diving into. Throughout this session, we'll look at how sports influence us, the language used around them, and their significance. So, let's get started, and make this an engaging and insightful journey. Now, let's look at the rules for doing the exercises. First, we need to understand how to apply these rules correctly. We'll focus on sentences using as to make comparisons. Then, we'll move on to forming sentences with the comparative form of adjectives and adverbs, which helps us compare different things or actions. Next, we'll learn how to form sentences using the present perfect progressive tense, which is useful for describing actions that started in the past and are still happening. We will also look at using adverbs of manner properly in sentences to describe how actions are performed. The lesson objectives are clear. We want to distinguish between the present perfect simple and the present perfect progressive. This is important because each tense has its specific use and meaning. By understanding these key points, you'll be better equipped to use these structures accurately in your writing and speaking. So, throughout this section, keep in mind that mastering these rules will improve your overall command of English grammar and help you express yourself more clearly and effectively. Today, I want to talk about the duration of action and how we use the present perfect progressive to express this. For example, if I say, "He has been working for 8 hours," I'm emphasizing how long he has been working, and this action might still be ongoing. When we want to specify when an action started, we use since. For instance, "He has been working since 7:00 a.m. This shows us exactly when the action began. The present perfect progressive is especially useful because it connects the past with the present. It allows us to talk about actions that started in the past and are still happening now or just recently finished. It also highlights the results or effects of the action. Remember, we use for to specify the length of time, like 8 hours. And since to point out the starting point, like 7:00 a.m., when you want to focus on how long something has been happening or on the ongoing nature of an action, this tense is perfect. So, in summary, the present perfect progressive helps us describe actions that are ongoing or very recent, emphasizing duration and the connection between past and present. Let's take a closer look at how we form the present perfect progressive tense. When we want to talk about actions that started in the past and are still happening now, we use this tense. The basic structure is have or has plus been plus the verb in the ing form. For example, if I say, "They have been studying since 3:00 p.m., it means they started studying at 3:00 p.m. and are still studying now. Notice that for they, we use have because they is plural. Similarly, for she, we say she has been studying since 3:00 p.m. Here, since she is singular, we use has. Now, to make questions with this tense, we invert the structure. For example, have they been studying since 3:00 p.m.? It's a quick way to ask if an ongoing action has been happening since a specific time. We can also ask about her situation. Has she been studying since 3:00 p.m.? And for negatives, we add not after have or has, like they haven't been studying since 3:00 p.m., or she hasn't been studying since 3:00 p.m. It's important to remember that the focus here is on the duration of the action from a point in the past until now. This tense is very useful when we want to emphasize ongoing activity. So in summary, the key points are use have or has plus been plus verb-ing, form questions by inversion, and negatives by adding not. This structure helps us express actions that have been happening and are still happening now. Let's take a look at some key differences between uncountable and countable nouns. When we're talking about uncountable nouns, we ask, how much? For example, how much money have you spent? Money is uncountable because we don't usually count individual units of it. Instead, we measure or quantify it in terms of amount. On the other hand, for countable nouns, We ask, how many? Like, how many programs have you watched? Programs are countable because we can count each one individually. Here's a simple rule to remember. Use how many with countable nouns and how much with uncountable nouns. This helps us specify the quantity of what we're talking about. Now, why do we use these questions? Mainly to say how many things have been done, which relates to quantity, or to talk about actions that were recently completed. And that brings us to the present perfect simple. Do you know much about it? It's a tense we use to connect past actions to the present, especially when we're referring to recent activities or experiences. It emphasizes the result or the fact that something has happened, which is very useful in conversations about recent accomplishments or ongoing situations. Can Ali dive? He's a good diver. He dives really well. The adverb form of good is well. He's a fast runner. He runs fast. He's a hard worker. He works hard. Sometimes, an adjective and adverb have the same form. For example, slow becomes slowly, quick becomes quickly, and loud becomes loudly. We usually add lie to an adjective to form an adverb. Now, how did he explain? He explained carefully, badly, or well. This shows us how something is done. It describes a verb. These are called adverbs of manner. They tell us how an action happens. Let's take a closer look at some common adverbs and their corresponding adjectives. As you can see in the table, good becomes well, fast stays fast, and hard remains hard. Notice that some adverbs, like fast, don't change at all from their adjective form. Others, like good, change to well, which is an irregular form. The same goes for late and early. These adverbs look similar to their adjectives but serve different functions. It's important to recognize that while many adverbs follow regular patterns, there are several irregular adverbs that don't follow these typical rules. That's why paying attention to these exceptions is key, especially when you're trying to use the correct form in speaking or writing. Overall, understanding these variations helps us communicate more accurately and naturally, especially as we explore more irregular adverbs later on. This knowledge ties into our broader theme of mastering English grammar and usage, ensuring we're both precise and fluent in our language skills. Let's take a closer look at how we compare things using adverbs and adjectives. First, notice the sentence. She drives more carefully than her brother. Here, more carefully is used to compare her driving to her brother's. When we want to compare two actions or qualities that are adverbs or adjectives with two or more syllables, we usually add more before the word, like more carefully or more popular. Now look at the example. He drives faster than his brother. Faster is a one-syllable adverb, so instead of more fast, we simply add to make the comparative form faster. Similarly, compare tall and taller. He is taller than his brother. When dealing with one-syllable adjectives or adverbs, we add directly. Moving on to adjectives with two or more syllables, such as popular, we say, football is more popular than basketball. For these, we add more before the adjective. And when we want to express the comparison at a higher degree, we add more before the word, like more popular or more carefully. In summary, for one-syllable adjectives and adverbs, we add to form the comparative. For adjectives and adverbs with two or more syllables, we use more before the word. This pattern helps us clearly compare different qualities and actions, making our language more precise and expressive. All right, let's look at some more examples of how we use irregular adjectives in the comparative form. First, we have further and far. For example, if we say, we can't go any further, the road's blocked, we're indicating that we've reached the limit of how far we can go. Next, we see worse and bad. When we say, he drives worse than his brother, we're comparing driving skills, showing that his driving is less good. Similarly, in the sentence, Ali is better than Saad, we're comparing two people, showing that Ali has a higher skill or quality in this context. Now let's talk about the word better. It means good in a comparative sense. And finally, it's important to remember that there are some irregular adjectives when we form the comparative. Unlike regular adjectives that add "er," these change in a different way, which is something you'll need to memorize. Understanding these irregular forms is key to using comparatives correctly and naturally in conversation. Now let's take a closer look at how we compare differences and similarities using these structures. When we want to show that one item is not as something as another, we use the phrase not as. As, for example, he is not as tall as his brother. This means his height is less than his brother's. Similarly, a turtle is not as fast as a rabbit, showing that the rabbit is faster. On the other hand, when we want to express that two things are equal in some way, we use as. As, for instance, he's as tall as his brother, meaning they are the same height. Or he's as thin as a rake, which emphasizes how very thin he is, comparable to a rake. These structures are very useful because they help us clearly compare qualities or characteristics. And as you can see, they can be used to describe different qualities, like height, speed, or even how busy someone is. For example, I'm very busy, and I'm as busy as a bee, to show how busy I am, comparing my busyness to that of a bee, which is always active. In summary, not as helps show differences, while as highlights similarities. These expressions are really handy for making comparisons clear and engaging in your conversations or writing. When we look at what's considered best in fashion or trends, it's often about being more fashionable, right? So the best options tend to be the most stylish and up-to-date. But of course, good taste is subjective, and what's good for one person might be different for another. As trends evolve, things that are faster and easier to adopt become more popular. People want quick, simple ways to stay in style without a lot of hassle. That's why the most popular choices are often the latest ones, new, fresh, and on the cutting edge. And when it comes to making decisions, we also value things that are well-made and reliable. So, it's a balance between staying current and choosing options that stand the test of time. Overall, understanding what's best, most fashionable, and most popular helps us stay aligned with the current market and consumer preferences. It's about finding that sweet spot where style, ease, and popularity come together to shape trends. All right, for your homework, please work on the exercises in your workbook. Specifically, I want you to focus on exercise N, which is found on page 308. This is a great way to reinforce what we've learned today and help solidify your understanding. Remember, practicing these exercises will make the concepts much clearer and more familiar. So, take your time, follow the instructions carefully, and try to complete the exercises thoughtfully. This will really support your overall progress and mastery of the material we've covered. Keep up the good work.